Most quarters might never catch your eye, but some Washington quarters have become legendary among collectors. Today, we're exploring the rarest and most valuable examples in history, so make sure to watch till the end, you won't want to miss a single one. Let's get started. Before we begin with today's list of interesting coins, let me start with a simple thought. Every day, people hand over quarters without even looking at them. They get tossed into pockets, dropped into car cup holders, or spent at checkout counters without a second glance. But mixed in with all that ordinary change, there are coins that collectors actually search for. And the first coin we're talking about today is one you've probably handled before without realizing it might be worth a closer look. This is the 2021 Crossing the Delaware quarter, a coin that looks straightforward at first but has enough small details and collecting interest to make it worth keeping an eye out for. It's one of those modern coins that isn't rare by default, but certain examples can be more desirable than others. So before you let one slip away, it's good to know what makes this coin worth checking. The story of this quarter starts in a transition year for the U.S. Mint. In early 2021, the long-running America the Beautiful Quarter series came to an end. Instead of choosing something completely new, the Mint went with something familiar but refreshed, a design that could stand on its own while still connecting to American history. On the front of the coin, you'll see the classic portrait of George Washington that has been part of U.S. quarters for decades. It's a clean and simple design that most people immediately recognize. This portrait was originally sculpted in the early 1930s, and it still works well on today's coins because of its solid, timeless feel. The reverse is where this quarter becomes different from the ones we've been seeing for the last several years. It shows Washington standing at the front of a boat during the well-known winter crossing of the Delaware River. The design is detailed but balanced. Washington is steady, the boat appears solid, and the lines in the water add a bit of movement without going over the top. The whole image is meant to look straightforward and clear. While this design is based on a historical moment, it keeps things simple. And because this reverse design was used for only part of 1 year, it instantly became something collectors pay attention to. Single-year issues always attract interest, even if they were made in large numbers. These variations can include tiny die chips, light die cracks, or slight marks that appear because of pressure or wear on the dies used to strike the coins. Some 2021 quarters show small raised bumps near Washington's sleeve or around the edge of the boat. Others may show a faint line through part of the design. These are not flaws caused by circulation, they are mint-made features that occur naturally during production. Collectors enjoy these varieties because they show the small imperfections that happen during mass production. Even though they may be subtle, they add personality to the coin. Condition is another important factor that can make this quarter worth holding onto. Most coins traveling through circulation pick up scratches, dings, and wear marks. That's why finding a crisp, clean 2021 Crossing the Delaware quarter is always a nice surprise. A well-preserved example can be much more appealing to collectors than a heavily circulated one. Some people also search through uncirculated rolls from the bank, where coins have not yet mixed with everyday change. These rolls sometimes contain strong examples with very sharp details and bright surfaces. The San Francisco Mint also produced proof versions of this coin, easily recognized by their smooth surfaces and mirror-like backgrounds. Proof coins are made differently, with polished dies and special handling. Even though you're unlikely to find one in regular change, they're still part of the overall 2021 design group. Another reason to keep an eye on this coin is that it's still quite new. Many examples are still out there waiting to be discovered. Over time, as more of them get worn down, the nicer ones naturally become more appealing. Something else worth mentioning is that different regions of the country saw different amounts of these coins in circulation. Some people reported seeing them often, while others rarely came across them. Uneven distribution is normal with modern coins. The thing to remember is that this coin doesn't rely on rarity alone. Its appeal comes from a mix of factors: the one-year design, the clean artwork, the historical connection, the potential for mint-made varieties, and the chance of finding one in excellent condition. All of these together create a coin that's worth checking before you put it back into circulation. So whenever you get change, it's a good idea to flip the quarter over for a quick look. If you see Washington at the front of the boat, take another moment to look closely. Check the details, look for anything unusual, and pay attention to the overall condition. A clean example or one with a small mint variety could be something collectors appreciate. Even if you don't find anything unusual, you might still decide to keep a few simply because they represent a unique moment in modern coin history. It's not every year that the mint switches designs, and it's even less common for a design to appear for only a single year. The 2021 Crossing the Delaware quarter is a reminder that interesting coins can appear in everyday pockets. You don't need rare collections to find something worth saving. Sometimes all it takes is slowing down long enough to notice what's already in your hands. So as you go through your change, keep an eye out for this one-year design. And before you spend one, remember that some of these quarters could be more desirable depending on their condition and any small mint-made details they carry. Moving on to the 1996 D quarter, this is a coin many people overlook because it blends so easily into everyday circulation. It's the kind of quarter you might find in a vending machine, in a handful of change, or tucked into a drawer without giving it a second thought. But even coins that appear completely ordinary can become interesting when you start paying attention to the details. The 1996 D quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, and that mint mark is placed just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Millions of these coins entered circulation, so at first, nothing about this quarter stands out as unusual. It has the familiar obverse portrait of George Washington and the long-running eagle design on the reverse. It's simple, familiar, and exactly what people expect to see on a U.S. quarter from the mid-1990s. What makes this coin worth talking about is not rarity by mintage. Instead, it's the much smaller number of examples that have survived in excellent condition. Most of the 1996 D quarters you see today have worn surfaces, dull luster, small scratches, or contact marks from years of use. That's normal. But every now and then, someone finds a piece that somehow managed to avoid that heavy wear, and that's where the collecting interest begins. Collectors always pay attention to condition, especially with modern coins. A coin that spent its entire life in circulation will naturally look rougher than one that sat undisturbed in a roll or jar for many years. The 1996 D quarter is no exception. Those with crisp details, untouched fields, and original mint shine stand out quickly, and they often earn a second look from anyone familiar with coin quality. Another reason collectors keep an eye on this coin is the possibility of small mint-made characteristics. During production, the dies that strike the coins can develop slight imperfections. These might include tiny chips, faint cracks, or subtle areas where extra metal shows up. They're not always dramatic, and they don't turn the coin into something extremely rare, but they do create variations that some collectors like to find. These mint-made features give the coin personality. They show the natural wear and aging of the dies used to strike it, and each small variation tells a bit about the minting process. Even a slight raised line on the eagle's wing or a small bump near Washington's profile can make someone set the coin aside instead of spending it. High-grade coins are another part of the story. When a 1996 D quarter is found in outstanding condition, collectors often consider sending it in for professional grading. Coins that receive very high grades can be appealing because they represent the very best examples from a large mintage year. They're not common, which is exactly why they attract attention. Some people underestimate how challenging it is to find a modern circulating coin in truly exceptional condition. Even newly minted coins can pick up marks as they move through the production and distribution process. So when a nearly flawless example appears, it stands out immediately. The smoother the surfaces and the sharper the details, the more impressive the coin becomes from a collector's perspective. This coin is also part of the last years before major changes began in U.S. coinage designs. Within just a few years, the entire look of circulating quarters would shift as the state quarters program started. Because of that, some collectors view late 1990s quarters as the closing chapter of the original design era that ran for decades. The 1996 D fits right into that window, giving it a small historical significance even though it's a modern coin. If you ever sort through change or search coin rolls, you'll likely come across plenty of 1996 D quarters. Most of them will show the usual signs of life in everyday circulation. But the key is to slow down and take a closer look rather than assuming they're all identical. Some may have unusual die characteristics. Some may be lightly circulated. And if you're really lucky, you might find one that looks much better than the rest. Collectors enjoy the search because you never know where a nicer example might appear. It could be in a roll from the bank, in a handful of coins from a store, or even in an old jar someone forgot about years ago. Not every interesting find has to come from a coin shop or a collection. Sometimes the best discoveries show up in the most unassuming places. That's why this coin continues to get attention from people who enjoy modern US coinage. It's familiar, it's common, and yet the few standout pieces among the millions give it a layer of excitement. When a coin from a high mintage year manages to reach extraordinary quality, it becomes memorable in a way that surprises people who never expect that level of value from something so ordinary looking. And that brings us to the most surprising part of all. While most 1996 D quarters are worth face value, an exceptionally well-preserved example, one that received a top-tier professional grade and showed outstanding surfaces, once sold for an impressive $62,000. This kind of result is extremely rare, but it shows just how much difference condition can make. So the next time you spot a 1996 D quarter, don't dismiss it as just another coin. Give it a moment, check the details, and look at the overall quality. You never know what you might be holding. Let's keep going, there's still more to explore in today's lineup, and the next coin has its own story waiting to be discovered. The next coin on our list is the 1983 D Washington quarter, a coin that, at first glance, might look completely ordinary. It's the kind of coin most people pass over without a second thought, yet for collectors, it holds a unique appeal because of the circumstances surrounding its production and survival. In 1983, the Denver Mint produced these quarters and released them straight into circulation. Unlike other years, there were no traditional collector mint sets for 1983, which meant almost every coin began its life in everyday use. Coins that spent decades in circulation rarely survive in pristine condition, and that's exactly what makes this particular quarter interesting. Because of this, the overwhelming majority of 1983 D quarters today show significant wear. Even minor scratches, slight dings, or dull surfaces are common, which makes finding an example with strong detail and clean surfaces rare. For collectors who focus on condition, that scarcity adds a lot of interest. One of the most important aspects of this coin is the quality of the strike. Some 1983 D quarters were struck with clearer details than others. Collectors look for sharp edges on Washington's portrait, well-defined lettering, and strong texture in the eagle on the reverse. Coins that retain these features despite circulation stand out immediately and are much more sought after than the average coin. Another factor collectors examine is how the coin's surfaces have survived. The smooth fields of the quarter, those blank areas around the main design, are particularly vulnerable to scratches and wear. Most surviving 1983 D quarters have dull, marked fields, but occasionally one is discovered with smooth, almost untouched surfaces, which significantly enhances its appeal. Mint-made variations also play a role in the interest surrounding this coin. Some 1983 D quarters show subtle imperfections from the minting process, like faint die cracks, tiny raised bumps, or slight irregularities in the metal. These small features aren't errors in the traditional sense, but they can make a coin stand out among the many millions produced. Because most examples were handled heavily in circulation, the ones that survived in superior condition are extremely rare. Even coins that appear only slightly better than average become desirable to collectors who know the challenges of finding well-preserved examples from this year. Collectors also pay attention to luster, the soft, natural shine that coins have when they are freshly struck. On a coin from 1983, original luster is incredibly uncommon because most quarters have lost it after years in circulation. Coins that still have some original shine are instantly more appealing and are often set aside for further evaluation. Another reason this coin attracts attention is the consistency of the design features. On many circulated coins, where flattens details like Washington's hair, the eagle's feathers, and the lettering around the edges. When all those elements remain strong and sharp, it shows that the coin has survived decades without the usual contact marks or abrasions that destroy details on typical circulation coins. Over the years, collectors have developed a keen eye for these standout examples. Even a coin that isn't completely perfect can be impressive if it maintains a higher level of detail than almost every other surviving coin from 1983. That rarity and preservation is what makes this coin so compelling. Because of these factors, condition, luster, sharp details, and mint-made characteristics, the 1983 D quarter is one of the most talked about coins among modern quarter collectors. People often search through rolls of coins hoping to find that one example that looks noticeably different from the rest. Even small differences in appearance can make a huge impact in terms of collector interest. In addition, some collectors like to study the subtle differences in the coin's surface finish. Tiny marks or variations in color and reflectiveness can indicate that a coin avoided heavy circulation, adding a layer of intrigue to the search. It's these fine details that turn a simple coin into something that draws repeated attention. Even the edges of the coin can tell a story. Where patterns along the rim, sharpness of the denticles, and the consistency of the border all give clues about how the coin traveled over the years. Coins with intact rims and minimal wear are exceptionally rare for this particular year. Because the 1983 D was so heavily circulated, finding multiple features in one coin, sharp details, smooth fields, strong luster, and intact rims, is extraordinary. When a coin meets all of these criteria, it becomes one of the most desirable examples for modern quarter collectors. The fascination with this coin continues because it serves as a reminder of how condition alone can create value. Millions of 1983 D quarters exist, but only a tiny fraction have survived in top condition. And it's that scarcity of quality that collectors prize the most. And here's the remarkable part. While most 1983 D quarters remain ordinary in everyday use, a truly exceptional example, one preserved in outstanding condition with sharp detail, clean surfaces, and strong luster, has reached a coin value of $70,000. So, if you come across a 1983 D quarter that looks unusually sharp, unusually clean, or displays features that most of the others don't, it's worth taking a closer look. It could be one of the rare survivors from a year when top-quality examples are almost impossible to find. Even examining the subtle differences between coins can be fascinating. Every line, every mark, every bit of luster tells a story about how the coin survived through decades of circulation, making the search for the exceptional one all the more rewarding. Up next is the 1980p Washington quarter, a coin that might look completely ordinary at first glance, but for collectors, it has an unexpected appeal. While millions of these quarters were minted at the Philadelphia Mint, very few have survived in remarkable condition, making this coin much more interesting than its face value would suggest. In 1980, the Philadelphia Mint produced these quarters for circulation only. There were no specially preserved mint sets for collectors that year, which meant nearly every coin went straight into the hands of the public. Coins were spent, carried in pockets, stored in jars, or tossed into cash drawers. Over time, most of these coins accumulated the typical signs of wear, scratches, dull surfaces, and minor dents, but a few managed to escape heavy circulation, and those are the ones that stand out today. Collectors often focus first on the strike quality of these coins. While the majority of 1980p quarters were struck normally, some came off the press with sharper details. Washington's portrait, the lettering on the obverse, and the eagle's feathers on the reverse can vary depending on the dies used and how worn they were. Coins with crisp, well-defined features immediately catch a collector's eye. Even small differences in the sharpness of the design can significantly affect a coin's desirability. Another important factor is the coin's surfaces. The smooth areas surrounding the design, known as the fields, are especially prone to scratches and wear. Most 1980p quarters show a fair amount of contact marks, but occasionally, one is discovered with clean, smooth fields that look almost untouched. This rarity is a big reason collectors find the coin appealing. Luster is another aspect that adds value. The original shine from the minting process rarely survives decades in circulation, yet some 1980p quarters retain a soft, natural glow. Even partial luster can make a coin stand out in a pile of otherwise dull examples. It indicates that the coin has been handled carefully or was fortunate enough to avoid heavy wear over the years. Subtle mint-made characteristics also play a role. Some coins display minor die cracks, faint raised lines, or tiny irregularities caused during the striking process. These features aren't considered major errors, but they add uniqueness and can make a coin more interesting to collectors. A single small imperfection, combined with excellent overall condition, can make a coin more desirable than a worn, flawless-looking example. Edges are equally important. Denticles, or the small ridges along the coin's rim, are one of the first areas to show wear. Coins with fully intact denticles and sharp rims are rare for this year. When a 1980p quarter preserves these features, along with strong details and smooth surfaces, it becomes particularly noteworthy. Collectors often examine edges carefully because they can reveal a lot about a coin's history. The overall combination of sharp details, smooth fields, intact rims, and retained luster is what makes the 1980p quarter so compelling. Millions were minted, but only a handful have survived in near pristine condition. That makes any coin showing these qualities a candidate for closer inspection and potentially high collector interest. Collectors also look for small, subtle details that differentiate an average coin from an exceptional one. Slight variations in color, reflectiveness, and surface texture can indicate that a coin avoided prolonged circulation. Even coins that look ordinary at first glance can reveal surprising features when examined under proper lighting or magnification. Another fascinating point is that the 1980p quarter comes from a period just before major changes began in circulating coin designs. While the Washington quarter design remained standard for decades, coins from this era can be seen as part of the last generation of pre-state quarters circulation. Collectors sometimes view them as a bridge between traditional minting and the more collectible modern series that followed. Because of all these factors, coins from this year that have survived in outstanding condition are extremely rare. Even a coin that appears only slightly better than average can generate collector interest, especially when it combines multiple qualities: sharp design, smooth fields, strong luster, and intact edges. And finally, here's the remarkable point: a 1980p quarter in truly exceptional condition, with outstanding surfaces, sharp details, intact rims, and retained luster, has a coin value of $75,000. So if you ever come across a 1980p quarter that looks unusually clean, unusually sharp, or shows subtle features that most others don't, it's worth a closer look. Even coins from a year with millions minted can surprise you when they survive in extraordinary condition. This coin serves as a reminder that condition, attention to detail, and a bit of luck can transform an ordinary piece of change into something extremely desirable. Each element, from the clarity of the design to the untouched fields and rim, tells a story about how the coin survived decades of circulation, making it more than just a coin, but a piece of history. And that wraps up today's look at some of the most fascinating modern Washington quarters. Each coin tells its own story, and even coins that seem ordinary at first glance can turn out to be rare treasures if you know what to look for. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more coin discoveries, collecting tips, and hidden gems, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a comment below with your thoughts or experiences, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. Your support really helps us keep bringing these videos to you. Thanks so much for watching, and keep exploring. You never know which coin in your change might be the next standout.